Tony, wake up, Tony. Allow me to introduce myself. I am your Alert Intelligence Unit, Amstrad 600. I was activated due to shutdown of Primary Intelligence Unit, ANSE-70. Cause unknown.
In the latest 50 years, mathematicians, scientists and artists have been building a new form of entertainment: interactive video games. The transition from the analog entertainment of yesterday to the digital entertainment of today was not an easy task. The first official game was developed in 1952. The game was OXO, or more commonly known as tic-tac-toe. After that came tennis for two. To display the game, they used the oscilloscope technology. The real start came in the middle of the 1960s, when the Digital Equipment Corporation borrowed one of their supercomputers to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. The computer was a PDP-1, a supercomputer for its time. The student, Steve Russell, wrote a graphical program which allowed two players to take control of each spaceship and to shoot rockets at each other. With the help of two friends, they later on added gravitation and even a background made of stars. The game was finished in 1962. Little did they know that they had started a brand new form of entertainment. And so, the video game industry was created. Today, there are many different schools around the world which educate students in the art of video game development, where students pour down all of their energy into learning and mastering everything from programming to advanced graphical development. One of these is the Game Assembly, located in the city of Malmö in Sweden. After 1 year of training in programming and graphical development, the students are divided into small groups which will act as independent game development companies. One of these groups was called Slim Unibröw. This is their story. The creative force behind the Game Assembly is Anne-Sophie Sudo. To launch a new game education had its setbacks, but finally the education was approved and the first batch of students arrived in the summer of 2008. The Slim Unibröw team was from the second generation of students. They started their training in the summer of 2009. The group consists of 6 programmers and 5 graphical artists. Their first goal was to pass the games made by the previous students. The first project was to produce a 3-dimensional space shooter. When the project started, no one in the team had any knowledge or previous experience in 3-dimensional programming, so they had to rely on their educators to take it one step at a time. In spite of the lack of experience, the project only had a production time of 10 weeks. During the first meeting, the team decided that it would not be time to make an advanced game or a game with a complex story. To go for something original and innovative was considered foolish. The solution was to make a fun and simple game. Not only did they have to produce a working game before the deadline, but they also had to compete with 3 other groups. When the games were completed, the students got to vote on the games which they thought were the best. The prize was to have their game on display at the Game Assembly's webpage. As the weeks went on, the game, which was developed from scratch, began to take form. One week before the deadline, the team realized a devastating thing. They were so far behind schedule that the only way they would be able to save the project was to work long into the night. Everyone agreed that if the game was to be completed, this had to be done. Although, the real stress did not come until the day before the deadline, when they realized they had no beginning or ending for the game. They worked late into the evening, only to realize the game was not completed and they only had 12 hours left before the deadline. The solution was to divide the workflow. Each person was given a task, and the team was relying on everyone to be able to complete the tasks given to them. If only one person in the team made a mistake, the entire project would end in disaster. It was during this first night together they realized what a great team they truly were. Everyone took their tasks with the gravest severity and did their best to be able to complete the game. But the question was, would they be able to do it on time? The clock was closing in on 8:30, and after an exhausting night, everyone had completed their tasks. The time had finally come to hand in the game for evaluation and testing.
Good morning, Tony. Allow me to introduce myself. I am your Alert Intelligence Unit. enemies are approaching. Will you do something for me? Start shooting, Tony. Are you okay, Tony? Do you know where we are, Tony? Tony, space-time irregularity is becoming critical. My resources are unfortunately limited. Don't worry, Tony. I just want to see you suffer.
The game was a success and was even awarded with a first place in the competition with the other groups. After a 3 days rest, it was time to start the next project. The new assignment was to make a strategy game. As the group had developed more knowledge in three-dimensional programming, it was now time to take it to the next level. This new project required the team to learn and master both extensive animations and AI programming. Even though they had not done this before, the team felt that after the success of the previous project, they had no obstacle they could not overcome. The other three groups decided on making a classical strategy-based game, but Slim decided once more to go for fun and simple. This time, the team had big ambitions and wanted to create a big world for the user to explore, which meant more work for the graphical artists. But during the first weeks, they had issues getting the animation to work. The program crashed every time an animation was loaded. The animations that the graphical artist exported through the program Maya did not work with the program code that the programmers wrote. Except for one character. For some reason, this character worked, and during the coming weeks it was used to test all character-based functions of the game, hoping that the animation issue would be solved further on. A few weeks later, they discovered that their plans had been too big from the start, so they decided to cut some features from the game. At the same time, they discovered that the requirements for the AI could not be implemented in time, which meant the game would not receive a passing grade. Despite this knowledge, they continued the race against time. To make a good and fun game was more important than to receive a passing grade. History repeated itself. During the last weeks, several problems arose, and the animation issue was still not solved. With little more than a week left, they finally managed to export the animations to the system. The game was completed on time, but the important AI function was not included. But still, they hoped that the others would like the game. Once again, the team proved that they had known what was needed to create a winning concept. After the students had tried all the games, Umbra was awarded first place. And everyone in the Slim team took great pride in what they had managed to achieve. But the worst was yet to come. Despite the success, the game did not receive a passing grade due to the missing AI. Even though Umbra did not receive a passing grade, the team was more confident than ever. The AI in Umbra had to be dealt with, but now all of the team's energy were to go on the third project, which were to become a first-person shooter. A genre which everyone felt more comfortable with. Graphics engine, which they've been developing since the first project, had become better and better. Many problems were gone, and this time they had the opportunity to make a good-looking and more action-packed game. Even though the first two games had been completed on time, they now wanted to avoid having to work for 24 hours on the last day of the project. During the 6 months the group had been working together, they now had found the perfect formula for making video games. To slim them. Which means no original or innovative ideas. Just go for action and fun. As the graphical engine was fully functional, the programmers now had the time to focus on shader programming and creating shadows. There were now also time to make a better level editor. Even as they had this luxury, there was another obstacle to overcome. They had to manage the physics engine. Instead of creating their own engine from scratch, they decided to use an existing engine from Havoc in order to focus more on the game itself. Everyone knew this game was very important, as it was to be presented on the Nordic Game Conference, where many different gaming development companies would participate. This was the chance to show what they had learned to the people that could become their future employers. Without any major problems, the project went on. Christian, one of the graphical artists, had an idea that it would be cool if you could blow up your enemy, but no one would listen to him. Everyone thought it was a bad idea, but Christian did not give up. He was sure that this would be a success, and he had a plan. He went to Anton the programmer and asked him if this was possible. Anton saw this as a challenge and got right to work, without letting anyone know what he was up to. This was a daring decision, but when everyone saw the result, they loved it. Thanks to Christian and Anton's cooperation, the game was improved. But on the last week, problems arose.
Men det är väl hästmode? Hästmode, inte banan. Ja. Där. Här. Det kan du göra. Nej. Det kan du göra.
Now, there were only 24 hours left to the deadline. There were too many glitches and no possibility of finishing the game on time.
UV. Copy UV står UV set.
Everyone worked hard, but the project was doomed to fail. There were no time to be able to save the game. Everything pointed to that this was the end of Slim Unibröw.
Jag har kollat spec multiplayer, nu är det inte att den är på noll.
In order to save the project, it would take a miracle. Salvation came in the form of a blackout, which knocked out all of the computers. As no one knew how long the blackout would last, the examinators decided to postpone the deadline to Monday the next week. The project was saved. During the weekend, the biggest part of the group stayed on and solved the problems. The game was finished on time. But the question remains, would they once again slim it?
Wake up, Tony. Rise, my dust. They've crawled under my skin. I want them out. Find me. Death is in your
way.
During the production phase, the team had seen one of the competitors' game, a game called Qudgar 3000. Even at this stage, the team thought that this game would win. As they had thought, Qudgar 3000 won the competition, and their game came on a second place. The decision was just. The better game had won. The Nordic Games Conference in 2011, the games were on display for the people working in the industry. The response was great, even greater when they had found out that each group had built their own graphical engines. There were a lot of partying, but for the first time in a long time, everyone could relax. But after the festivities, it was time to get back to work.
Så lite späckare där. Speciellt det där svarta på där olycksfärgade det blir.
On the last project, the team was given free hands. They had decided, even before the Nordic Game Convention, that they would continue working on the previous game to add more levels, new weapons, and greater boss fights.
Ska du in och böja?
This was Slim Unibrow's last project together. And after this, the group will be shattered and everyone will start their internship at different gaming companies. Even though the last project was bigger and better, they still lost in the end. But none of this bothered the team. Everyone was very proud with the game which they had created, and the time which they had created them in. Everyone who was involved with the Slim Unibröw team is today active within the gaming industry. And it all started in Malmö on the game assembly. Today, the game assembly is more active than ever. The education offers even more than when the Slim Unibröw members attended the school. But that is another story entirely.
Well done, Tony. For a second there, I was very worried for our safety.